Hello, night dwellers. Welcome to the dark unknown. Put on your headphones, turn off the lights, and prepare yourself. Tonight, I'll take you into the world of the most unsettling toys ever created, dolls. They were made to bring comfort, to be companions for children, but throughout history, many of them carried something far more sinister. Eyes that never blink, smiles that never fade, and a silence that feels almost alive. In this story, we'll explore what happens when an innocent gift becomes the door to something much darker, an ancient presence that refuses to let go. So, lean closer and listen carefully. Because once you step into this tale, you might start to feel that same unshakable gaze watching you, even in the safety of your own room. The Doll in the Playroom. Chapter 1: The Mysterious Gift. Mariana always remembered her grandmother's house fondly, despite the ancient smell of wood and dust that permeated every room. When her grandmother passed away, she inherited the old house, a large, ancient mansion at the end of the main street in her small town. Despite her sadness, Mariana felt a strange curiosity to explore the room she, as a child, had only visited in passing. The playroom was by far the most intriguing. Shelves crammed with porcelain dolls, wooden cars, and dusty teddy bears gave the impression that, at any moment, these figures could come to life. Mariana spent the afternoon cleaning the place, removing layers of dust, carefully rearranging each doll. It was then, upon opening a box in the corner of the room, that she found something different. An antique-looking porcelain doll with vivid blue eyes and silky blonde hair. She wore a pristine white dress with delicate lace that seemed to almost glow in the sunlight streaming through the window. But there was something strange about her. No one remembered that doll. It hadn't appeared in the stories her grandmother told, nor in the old boxes Mariana had examined before. The doll seemed out of place, as if it were waiting for someone. Mariana felt a shiver as she held it. She couldn't explain it, but there was a strange sensation that she was being watched. Her heart raced. "It must just be my imagination," she murmured, trying to laugh at herself. She placed the doll on the main shelf in the center of the room and decided to wait until later to investigate its origin. But that night, as she lay in bed in the room that was now hers, the silence seemed different. Something was wrong. Chapter 2: Subtly Wrong Movements. The first night, Mariana woke in the middle of the night to the sound of creaking wood. She thought it was the wind blowing through the cracks in the windows, but then she realized the sound was coming from the playroom. She got up slowly, her heart hammering in her chest. When she entered, she noticed something that made her freeze. The doll was no longer on the shelf. It was sitting on the floor, cross-legged, staring at the door. Mariana blinked in disbelief, trying to understand if she had just imagined it. "I didn't move it," she said, swallowing hard. But when she approached, the doll remained still, as if it hadn't moved on its own. Mariana picked it up again and placed it on the shelf, this time further away from the center of the room. She slept, trying to ignore the incident, but throughout the night she had disturbing dreams, the sound of small footsteps echoing down the hallway, the whispers of children's voices, and a constant feeling of being watched. The next morning, Mariana noticed the doll was in a different position again. Now, facing her, its blue eyes seemingly fixed on her soul. She decided she needed to investigate the doll's provenance. She searched through her grandmother's old things, but found no record of purchase or history about the doll. It was as if it had appeared out of nowhere. Chapter 3: The First Whisper. The following days brought new events. Small objects disappeared. Toys Mariana couldn't remember leaving in certain places reappeared in different positions. But the doll was always the same, at the center of everything, like a silent sentinel. One night, alone in the living room, Mariana clearly heard a thin, whispering voice. "Mariana." She froze. The sound came from the hallway that led to the playroom. Trembling, she approached the half-open door and realized the doll was sitting on the threshold, as if waiting for her. "Will you play with me?" The voice came out of nowhere, but it had a childlike timbre. Mariana's blood ran cold. The doll didn't move, but its eyes shone with a supernatural intensity. She stepped back and closed the door, locking it. But that night, she couldn't sleep. "I felt the doll's presence in every shadow, every corner of the room, as if it were alive and I could observe it even from afar." Chapter 4: Invisible Marks. The next day, Mariana began noticing small marks on the walls of her playroom. Thin, almost imperceptible scratches, as if someone had scratched with tiny nails. Later, when examining the doll, she noticed that its hands and face were dirty with something that looked like dried earth. But she lived alone. There was no explanation. At night, the whispers became clearer. Mariana heard disjointed phrases. "Why did you leave me here? Play with me, forever." One moment, the doll was in the rocking chair in her room, leaning forward slightly, as if breathing. Mariana couldn't move, mesmerized by the doll's presence, its blue eyes fixed on hers, pleading and threatening at the same time. The tension grew with each passing night. Mariana felt herself losing control. Everything seemed to revolve around that doll. Her clothes appeared torn, the floor was covered in small footprints that were not human, and the smell of damp earth spread through the room. Chapter 5: Breathing Nightmares. The nights became unbearable. Mariana woke up sweating, feeling invisible hands holding her, pressing against her chest. In her dreams, the doll came to life. Its blue eyes turned into black holes, and it spoke words Mariana couldn't understand, but which provoked pure fear. One morning, upon waking, she realized she was standing in the hallway, her bare feet on something cold and sticky. She looked down and saw small puddles of red liquid, which evaporated before she could touch them. The doll stood before her, motionless, but with its mouth half open, as if smiling. "You will stay with me, forever," it whispered again. Mariana ran to the kitchen, locking herself there until dawn. But every shadow, every noise in the house, reminded her of the doll and its silent promise. Chapter 6: Ancient Revelations. Desperate, Mariana decided to research the house. She found old newspapers that told of a tragedy. Decades ago, a girl named Isabella had mysteriously disappeared inside the mansion, right in the playroom. Her body was never found. Some reports said the girl had a favorite doll, which no one was able to locate after her disappearance. The description matched exactly the doll Mariana now owned. She realized that the doll was not just an old object, but Isabella's very essence, trapped in porcelain and silk, waiting for someone to free her or replace her in her macabre games. Chapter 7: Attempt at Liberation. Determined to rid herself of the evil presence, Mariana consulted occult experts. They recommended a ritual to free the imprisoned soul, using candles, coarse salt, and specific words. On the night of the ritual, Mariana placed the doll in the center of the room, forming a protective circle around it. Each word she spoke seemed to provoke a reaction. The doll moved slightly, tilting its head, following each movement with eyes that glowed in the dark. "No! Don't take me," the voice whispered, now desperate. The room grew cold, the air heavy, and a sense of an overwhelming presence washed over Mariana. The floor seemed to move, objects floated slightly, and shadows danced against the walls. But Mariana continued, steadfast, repeating the words of the ritual. Finally, with a crack that echoed like a muffled scream, the doll fell to its side, motionless. The room returned to silence, except for Mariana's racing heart. Chapter 8: The Price of Curiosity. The next morning, Mariana found the doll broken into several pieces, but the eyes still seemed alive, even though they were broken. A sense of relief washed over her, but also a silent fear. Something had been freed, or something had simply changed form. She decided to pack the doll's remains and bury them in the backyard, hoping the earth would absorb the evil that resided there. But that night, as she tried to sleep, she heard the whisper again. "Let's play, again." Mariana realized, with a shiver, that some presences cannot be destroyed. Some souls, when trapped by terror or death, find ways to remain, even when we think everything is over. The mansion remained silent for the following weeks. Mariana tried to move on with her life, but she never felt safe again, never felt alone. Every shadow in her house was a silent reminder of the doll, of the girl who disappeared, and of something that perhaps should never have been freed. She learned, the scary way, that not all toys are harmless, and that some games never end, they just change players. And so, the story ends, but the silence of the doll remains. Some toys never break, because they were never really toys at all. If tonight's tale kept you looking over your shoulder, remember, the darkness is always closer than you think. Thank you for watching until the end, Night Dwellers. Don't forget to subscribe, because there are many more stories waiting for you. Stories that will follow you long after the lights are out. Sleep well, if you can.